Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording. Today we're continuing along with our mix breakdown and we are looking at the electric guitars. We're going to be breaking down the electric guitar mix in this song here today, but before we dive in, if you're ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process in its entirety and really start to hone your workflow as an audio engineer, then I have just the thing for you. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through the entire mixing process step by step to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without any more of the hassle and without any more of the guesswork. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and look at these electric guitars. Let me start by playing you the finished mix for this song, and then I will solo up the stereo pair of electric guitars here for the song. So here's the finished mix for this track.
One step, and it's much too far. Take 2 steps, way too close, but take 3 steps, and I'm in your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart.
So you can hear it's a big pair of distorted electric guitars. They got some nice fuzz, they got some nice gain to them. So let's go through our processing here to get these sounding the way they are in the finished mix. You can see there's no processing on the individual tracks for this pair of electric guitars, and both of them are running into this rhythm guitar bus right here. So we have rhythm guitar left and rhythm guitar right. A little bit of level balancing here on the individual tracks, just so the bus isn't all the way down. These are down about 6 dB here, and then they're sending into the rhythm guitar level, which is this bus right here. That gives me one fader to control the overall volume for this pair of electric guitars. And then these guys here, this bus here is sending into the electrics bus. There's no processing going on in that, no volume balancing or anything like that as well. Now the bus here is down about 6 dB as well inside this mix, about a half dB up from our actual individual tracks here of the electric guitars. And we only have one EQ. We're using pretty much every band except for the high bend here to sculpt the electric guitars. You can see we're kind of shifting the frequency range of the electric guitar more towards top end and less towards the low mid area. Let me give you a quick before and after of the electric guitar. So here's our finished guitar, and then I will take off the EQ. You can hear where we started. So you can hear it's a very thick tone to begin with, and we want to kind of carve some of that heaviness out to make sure it fits inside the track with everything else we have going. You can see there's piano, organ, a pair of acoustic guitars, a lead guitar, bass, drums, vocals, and then a big stack of background vocals too. So we got a lot of instruments going on, and if we just have a lot of thickness coming from this pair of electric guitars, there's going to be a lot of space that's already eaten up, and everything combining on top of that, we're just going to get a pile of low-mid information. So we got to carve some of that heaviness out, but we don't want to thin out the guitars too much overall. First thing we're doing here, which is something I like to do on a pair of big electric guitars like this, is put high and low pass filters in to narrow the frequency range. When we're boosting top end later on in the electric guitar mix, I don't want it to create too much noise up on the top end or too much sizzle up into the extended top end range. And then on the bottom end, we don't need a lot of that sub area, so I'm rolling that off to make room for the bass and the kick drum and anything that's sitting lower down in the frequency range. So let me A-B just these two moves. So this is the high pass filter, which is up at 138, so rolling off all that sub information there. And then our low pass filter, which is up at about 10K, so making sure there's not too much sizzle or any harshness up on the high end here. So here's without it, and then I'll kick these guys in. just reduces some of that rumble on the bottom end. And then this guy up here, just a safeguard. So when we do boost top end, it doesn't reach so far up into the extended top ends, so above 10K area. Now, the next thing we're tackling here is making sure all this heaviness, this muddiness in the low mid area doesn't fight as we add more tracks on top of the electric guitars here. So the first thing I'm doing here is right around the low end of the electric guitar, so the 200 hertz, that's where that low heat is. I'm pulling some of that out. We're at 218 hertz, pulling out about 3 dB here. Negative 2.8 dB is where we're at. So listen without, then I'll kick this cut in and I'll boost it up so you can hear the frequency range that we're affecting here. So you can hear we're reducing some of that muddiness and some of that heavy sound that's consistently ringing through our guitar, but we're not thinning out the guitar too much. And if you even look visually, so if I hit play again here, you can see pulling down this frequency range kind of balances out our frequencies overall here. There's still a little bit of imbalance, but we're going to take care of that as we boost top end down the line there. So that's pulling out the muddiness. The next thing we have here is a little cut in the mid-range. We're at 400 hertz here, pulling down about 2.5 dB. Take a listen to this move here. So there was some boxiness going on with the electric guitars, and that can happen sometimes when you have a big pair like this. You'll get some buildup here in the mid-range, when usually you want that happening up in the high mids there, so the electric guitars cut through the mix. Just pulling some of that out to make room for things like the piano to sit there, and of course our vocal to sit in the mid-range as well, just reducing some of that boxiness. So here's what we have so far, just doing our cuts on the electric guitar here. So without, and then with our processing. So honing in on the heart of the sound and then pulling out some of the muddiness and some of the boxiness there in the low mid area. The next boost I like to go for, which is really crucial for me on electric guitar, is the mid-range area, or up towards kind of the high mid here. We're at 1.35K. Anywhere from like 1K up to about 2.5K is the mid-range that you want to emphasize on electric guitar. Especially big rock electric guitars like this. The mid-range is what you're selling. That's what makes them feel powerful and feel like rock electric guitars. We're doing about a 3 dB boost here, and you can see I've widened the bandwidth a little bit to bring up a bigger majority of this frequency range here. So take a listen without this boost, and then I'll kick it in. Listen to how the tone of the electric guitar changes. This here can be a taste move sometimes. For me, I love mid-range on big electric guitars. It's what you're selling. It gives it that rock tone, that big rock tone. But sometimes you want to go the other way, right? Sometimes you want to cut a bunch of mid-range and get that scooped sound. That can be more of a precision kind of move for like metal and heavier music where you want low heat and just fizzy top end. Here in a rock environment, I want to hear that mid-range. I want that power there. Last move we're making here is up on the top end. I want to add some sizzle and I want to add some brightness to the guitar. It feels a little dark at the moment, even with our mid-range boost in here. So we're at 4.5K, anywhere from like 3K up to about 6K on the high end is where you can add brightness on electric guitars like this. And having this move on the top end, the low pass filter, is a nice safeguard, especially if you're boosting higher, like 5, 6K. You don't want to add too much noise or too much harshness up on the top end. So we're at 4.5K here, adding about 3 dB, 3.36 dB. This is going to add some brightness to our tones. Take a listen without, and then I'll kick this boost in. Wakes up our electric guitar tone, gives us some of that nice fuzz that we want to hear on the top end. But again, it's not too much because we have our low pass filter in place. Take a listen, the overall effect of our EQ here. Just a little bit sculpting, switching our frequency ranges around, less on the heaviness and thickness in the bottom end, more on the mid-range and the brightness on the top end there. Let's throw them inside the mix and take a listen here. Just a couple moves here to get our electric guitars cutting through this mix here. Reducing what we don't need in the bottom end, right? So pulling out that sub area, getting rid of the muddiness and that kind of boxy sort of sound. Emphasizing the mid-range. Remember, we're selling mid-range on rock electric guitars. Boost on the top end to get some brightness and some fuzz around 4K, and then making sure we don't get too much harshness or too much noise up on the top end with our low-pass filter. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're ready to take your mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your workflow as an engineer, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and you can download it below to start creating more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.